Hello, all of you wonderful aristocrats. My name is For Extraordinaire, and welcome to the first dev diary for Victoria 3. Now, this is some unforeseen territory for me because I haven't actually covered a Victoria 3 dev diary yet. It's my first. I haven't covered any Victoria dev diaries, but I actually did a coverage of a CK3 dev diary for the Royal Court. So if you want to check that out on my channel, it is there. But I wanted to check this out since I don't have any experience. I don't think anyone else does with Victoria 3. I thought it'd be good to at least give my opinion and try to break down this for you guys and explain some of the possibilities surrounding the implications in the dev diary, as well as just talking about general strategy and what we could do with these pops and just the extent to which I think the pops will be able to be used and kind of how they can interact. They explain that, of course, in the dev diary, but I also have questions surrounding them since I've read the dev diary beforehand. So let's just get straight into it. Hello everyone, I'm Mikhail, Victoria 3's lead game designer, and oh boy, does it feel good to be finally able to say that out loud. Today, I have the pleasure to reveal some details about that one feature everyone thinks about when they hear Victoria, the pops. Pops were introduced in the very first Victoria game to represent your country's population. Pop mechanics have since snuck into other Paradox titles like Stellaris and Imperator, but this in-depth population simulation is what Victoria is about, and we're going to bring you a system with more depth than ever before. In Victoria 3, pops are the country's engine. They work the industries, they pay the taxes, they operate the government, institutions, and they fight the wars. They're born, they die, they change occupations, they migrate, and they organize, get angry, and start revolutions. Though there is one very important detail I might want to point out in that you actually have to use pops to create war crimes too, so that is also a very key element of Paradox games. I don't know why they left that out, but war crimes are a very important feature, and we won't be able to do them without pops. So thank you again, pops, for allowing us to do that. But every pop is visualized so you can see which demographic sports the best mustache. Now, note that pop portraits are very much a work in progress. So we can see just a little brief view of a Catholic clergyman. I believe this is France. We saw them where we were looking through the scope of them with the last brochure for the map, which I have also made a video for. And this is a clergyman, obviously. He has his little attire here. I like that the outfit is simulated. It seems every outfit will be simulated for each class and each ethnic group, I believe. So it seems like this is a very early footage. The face model looks a bit rugged, but you can see he's a Catholic clergyman. And then this is his security here. Obviously, it says secure, but I think this is how safe they feel regarding amenities. I think that's calculated separately, but it says, you, the player, might be in charge of the country, but you're not in charge of the pops and can't manipulate them directly. Yet everything you do to the country affects them, and they in turn will react to what they preserve to be their own best interests. A large part of your game will consist of trying to sate your population's appetites for material goods or political reform. But most actions you take aren't to the benefit of every pop in your nation, and by making life better for one part of the population, you may inadvertently upset another demographic. So I assume they're talking about things like religious minority rights, or even like tax reforms for the bourgeois or a certain political class, and all of that stuff. So great to see again that there is some balance being taken into account, and it's not just a one-way street. The most important aspect of pops are their professions, which reflects the types of jobs it carries out in the building where they work. A pop's profession determines its social class and can affect its wages, political strength, what other professions it might qualify for, and particularly when political interest groups it's prone to supporting, which you will hear lots more about in the future dev diaries. And then some of the pop professions you will encounter in Victoria 3 are aristocrats, capitalists, bureaucrats, officers, shopkeepers, machinists, laborers, and peasants. So about 8 classes roughly, which is very, very detailed. You'll have a lot to think about when you go through each of these classes, and I think some will share more in common, like obviously laborers and peasants would be more similarly affected to cutting out lower income jobs compared to capitalists and bureaucrats. So, and then officers are probably middle class along with shopkeepers, machinists, who may fluctuate between laborers and then shopkeepers. But every variation of profession, culture, religion, and workplace in the world gets its own unique pop. At any given time, this results in many tens of thousands of pops in the world working, migrating, procreating, and agitating. So they've given us a nice little slice of the Ottoman Empire here, and I just wanted to note, since this is the Ottoman Empire, I made a mistake in my last Victoria art review for that specific little detail the devs put out for their art. I mistook the Ottoman Empire for Egypt, and in fact, they were showcasing the island of Egypt. I believe it's still a vassal under Ottoman control in the start date, but I mistook Egypt for the Ottoman Empire, so sorry there. I'm just going to state that out for some clarification. Thank you to whoever corrected me in the comments. But we have this population here. He's a bit more secure than the clergyman we viewed. They have 7.97 million pops, or about roughly 8 million population in the Ottoman Empire at the time. And they seem to be wealthy, old money with old connections. Or then, actually, is this 7,000 or is it 7 million? I don't know, but there's a lot of people dependent on them because they are aristocrats. They're going to be holding a lot of the higher offices. They're going to be owning buildings, and this is like their average income, I believe, 853 pounds, I think. And then they have subsistence farms. That's what they're getting all their money from. They own some subsistence farms, and then they have. It seems like that's the total population. This might be provincial population, and then they have about 244,000 aristocrats in the Ottoman Empire proper. And then they also have political strength, which they punch very well, much above their weight, more than like 5 times. Okay, and then they also have a specific culture, and then the radical loyalists. It seems they have political parties, interest groups, and net income. And overall, they seem to be very secure and a satisfied customer there. Because if you piss the aristocrats off, it seems like they'll have a lot more repercussions compared to someone like a peasant who doesn't possess nearly as much political strength. I mean, that is a lot compared to their own population. So I guess a peasant would roughly have about the same political strength as their population, and they'll probably still have more political strength than the rough sum of aristocrats, but still, you need to consider higher class pops demands much more individually than you would the peasants or the laborers, at least at the beginning of the game, when you're in a much rougher state or start, depending on some of the start situations, which I assume they'll get onto later. But the people that make up a pop are distinguished into workforce and dependents. Members of the workforce keep the buildings in the game operational and collect a wage from them in return. Those who cannot or aren't permitted to be officially employed are considered dependents. They collect only a small income from odd jobs and government programs. So I assume dependents is factoring in disabled people, children, and I don't know if they'll be simulated, but I guess that's an issue for another day. So laws affect who is included in each category. At game start, most countries do not accept women working and collecting a wage outside the home, but by reforming laws governing the rights of women, more dependent pops will enter the workforce over time. By abolishing child labor, the amount of income dependents bring home will decrease, but will make it easier to educate your populace, increasing their overall literacy. After a bloody war, many dependents of soldiers may be left without sufficient income, and you may decide to institute pensions to help your population recover. In short, nothing in your country runs without pops, and everything about your country affects those pops, who in turn provide new opportunities and challenges during your tumultuous journey through the Victorian era and beyond. I have oh so much more to say, but this is all for the week. You will hear much more from me in the future Dev Diaries. Next week, Martin will return to explain something quite central to the game, capacities, which I think are something similar to infrastructure or buildings, but maybe they're laws, not too sure what they mean by capacities. But I also have a few more notes before we close off the video. One of my main concerns was how theocracies would interact with minority pops. So if you have someone like a clergyman who is a dominant force in Catholic Europe, how would he interact specifically with a minority Muslim character who may migrate if France has, or migrate from a place like Turkey, which is predominantly Muslim, and they want to migrate to France if it has more infrastructure developed, or if it even has tourism, which leads me on to another point, and that is, how will population's migration be affected by tourism and infrastructure? So I think they made it clear that infrastructure drives a lot of the facilities in the game, and that pops are central to working specific buildings and places. But will there be tourism offices? Can you increase the overall appeal of your country like you can with Planets and Stellaris? And then finally, similar to Stellaris, I'm making a lot of segues here, but how will they deal with individual pop lags? It seems like they're simulating a lot of things, even dependence maybe. So how will pop lag be addressed? They may have addressed it already, but I still think it's a pretty big problem for Stellaris. I mean, ever since they made the huge pop overhaul, and I think Apocalypse, maybe the Megacore update, but ever since they made that overhaul, at least from my experience, it's been a lot slower. And ever since they've been trying to recover from that. So if this new engine, or if they're using a similar engine for CK3, how will the engine be able to handle these pops? And what are the repercussions for just enabling all of these pops to be simulated? But I think that's it for today's video. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you like this kind of content, please let me know by leaving a like and subscribing. And I hope you guys enjoyed the video. But this has been 4 Extraordinaire, and I hope to see you all later. All right, peace.